who hide behind masks, disguising their true selves beneath a veil of deception. But Ted Bundy? His mask wasn't a physical one. His mask was his smile, his charm, his seeming normalcy. Ted Bundy, a man who appeared so ordinary, so approachable, yet behind that friendly exterior lurked something far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. What makes someone like Bundy truly terrifying isn't just what he did, but how he did it. He wasn't just a serial killer, he was a predator, methodical, calculating, and driven by an insatiable hunger for control and power. His prey? Women. Innocent, trusting women who had no idea the man standing in front of them was one of the most notorious killers in history. Bundy's evil wasn't the kind we often associate with madness or uncontrollable rage. No, his evil was something else, something far colder, far more calculated, and, in many ways, far more terrifying. Imagine the year is 1974. You're a young woman living in Seattle, going about your life in a world where danger seems distant. You hear occasional news reports of women disappearing, but it's all so vague, so unconnected. The city buzzes with life, and even though these disappearances make the papers, no one really knows what's happening. There are whispers, of course. Whispers of women vanishing without a trace, leaving behind nothing but a growing sense of unease. At first, these stories feel distant. Odd, yes, but not something that seems to impact your day-to-day life. But soon, these disappearances grow in number. The whispers turn into warnings, and that distant unease becomes a creeping fear. Yet, even as the tension builds, no one has any idea that the man responsible for these horrors is walking among them. He's not hiding in the shadows or lurking in some dark alley. No, Ted Bundy is right there, in plain sight. He's the guy who smiles at you on the street, the one who offers you a hand when you drop something, the man who seems so normal. But Bundy was far from normal. His methods, meticulously planned and disturbingly effective, made him a master manipulator. Often, he would wear a cast or a sling, faking an injury to appear vulnerable, harmless, even pitiful. He would approach women in parking lots or public places, asking for help with something simple, a task like loading books into his car or carrying some groceries. And why wouldn't they help him? He looked like an upstanding man, a man in need of assistance. But the moment they let their guard down, the mask would drop, and Bundy would strike. In that instant, they were no longer interacting with the charming stranger they had just met. They were face to face with a predator who had meticulously planned their capture. What's chilling about Ted Bundy isn't just how he killed, but how he lived. To the world, he was charismatic, handsome, even ambitious. People who met him described him as someone who had the potential for greatness, a law student, an aspiring politician, a man who seemed to have it all. But beneath that polished surface, Bundy's true nature simmered, an insatiable desire for power, control, and the destruction of innocent lives. He didn't just want to kill, he wanted to dominate, to take everything from his victims, reducing them to nothing more than objects for his twisted gratification. Over a span of just a few years, Bundy became the face of a nationwide nightmare. From Washington to Utah, from Colorado to Florida, he traveled across state lines, hunting with a terrifying sense of purpose. The numbers are staggering. He confessed to 30 murders, but many believe the true count is far higher. There are cold cases, unsolved disappearances, and nameless victims who were likely part of Bundy's horrific spree. His confessions, given after his capture, were always partial, selective, as if even in his downfall, he wanted to keep some of his secrets to himself. But here's what makes him even more terrifying: it wasn't just the killing that drove him. No, Bundy's evil ran deeper. After murdering his victims, he would often return to their bodies, days later, visiting the lifeless remains as if they were still somehow under his control. This is where his true depravity revealed itself. This wasn't a man who simply ended lives. This was a man who reveled in the aftermath, who found pleasure in the complete and total domination of another human being. In those moments, Ted Bundy wasn't just a killer, he was a monster who had stripped away every shred of humanity from his victims. Bundy's capture wasn't the end of his story. He was arrested multiple times. In 1975, after being pulled over for erratic driving, police linked him to a missing woman. But Bundy, ever the manipulator, wasn't going to be held that easily. Despite the mounting evidence, his charm, intelligence, and sheer audacity allowed him to escape custody, not once, but twice. The first time, in 1977, he jumped from a courthouse library window in broad daylight. Just like that, he vanished into thin air. Weeks later, after being recaptured, he managed to escape again, this time through a hole in the ceiling of his cell. For over a month, he was free, and during that time, more lives were lost to his unrelenting bloodlust. His final rampage took place in Florida in 1978 when he broke into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University. In the early hours of the morning, Bundy attacked 4 women, brutally killing 2 of them. His assault was frenzied, merciless, and marked by a level of violence that shocked even seasoned investigators. This was a man on the edge, desperate to feed his dark urges one last time before being caught for good. When Bundy was finally captured for the last time, the nation collectively exhaled. But even then, his charm didn't fade. Women flocked to his trial, enamored by the idea of a handsome killer. They wrote him love letters, defended him, obsessed over him, unable, or perhaps unwilling, to see the monster beneath the mask. That's the power Ted Bundy had over people. Even after the truth was laid bare, even after the horrors of his crimes were exposed, there were still those who couldn't believe that someone who looked like Ted Bundy could commit such atrocities. On January 24, 1989, Ted Bundy was executed in the electric chair. His final words? "Give my love to my family and friends. No apologies. No remorse. Just a cold, detached farewell from a man who had taken so much from so many." But even in death, the questions about Bundy linger. Was he born this way? Was he always destined to become a killer, or did something twist him along the way? The truth is, we may never know. But in the end, does it really matter? Ted Bundy's story isn't one of understanding. It's one of horror. He serves as a reminder that evil doesn't always come in the form of the grotesque or the monstrous. Sometimes, evil hides behind a smile, behind a friendly face, behind a charming demeanor. It can be the man next door, the helpful stranger, the person you think you know. Ted Bundy was proof that the most terrifying monsters are the ones that look just like us. As we wrap up this look into Ted Bundy's chilling legacy, remember that evil can often disguise itself in the most ordinary forms. Thank you for watching. If you found this video compelling, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories from the darkest corners of history. Stay alert and stay safe.
I've met a lot of men who were motivated to commit violence just like me. And without exception, every one of them was deeply involved in pornography, without question, without exception, deeply influenced and consumed by an addiction to pornography. There's no question about it. The FBI's own study on serial homicide shows that the most common interest among serial killers